Welcome, everyone, to Beyond the Brandywine,
where we wander, wonder, and occasionally get lost in Middle-earth. I'm Angela.
And I'm Kelsey. Beyond the Brandywine is a cozy, curious, and occasionally chaotic journey through the stories of Middle-earth.
Join us as we laugh over the odd bits of lore and follow tangents like hobbits chasing second breakfast. We're here to explore the places where the map fades and the questions get weird.
So, Angela, today we're once more diving into the creature Gollum. But we're not just talking about the different ways he's been brought to life. We'll be digging into some of the bigger questions about his purpose and role in the stories as well.
Yeah, like, is Gollum even redeemable? Was there ever a point where Smeagol could have been saved?
And why does Tolkien himself seem to have struggled so much with the character? There's a history of rewrites here. There's documented evidence of Tolkien wrestling with who Gollum really was and whether or not he could be saved and ultimately was a good or a bad character.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting to me seeing the different portrayals of Gollum through the ages. And I think it's really reflective of Tolkien's own struggles with how to portray the character when he was working through writing Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
And so this might be a good transition point into Tolkien's view on the character. And we've got some clues here and there from his own writings and revisions and the Tolkien letters and a couple other discussions he's had. But it's interesting to me, truly, because it's really maybe one of the most important characters in the whole story, if I may be so bold.
I agree with that.
And if you read the original Gollum in Tolkien's 1937, The Hobbit, very
really
different
when
Gollum.
He wrote that?
Yeah.
1937. Yeah. Crazy.
Well, some say he started writing in a hole in the ground of the Hobbit when he was in the trenches in World War I. But
yeah.
So the version of Gollum we first get from Tolkien is a creature in a kid's story. And he's there as a foil to Bilbo, and he says some riddles, and he kind of provides a little, like, a side scene and of Genesis for Bilbo to, like, find himself and leave the mountains. But he's not this sinister, evil, plotting version that was later.
I think maybe because I read The Hobbit second to Lord of the Rings, I didn't really recognize how Gollum just kind of started out as a much more simple character in this Hobbit.
Yeah, he's like
story,
a one-shot character in the scene in The Hobbit as it was originally written. And who knows if Tolkien had originally planned to do something more with the character, but there's this basically very famous set of rewrites that Tolkien, as he was writing Lord of the Rings. So the first edition of The Hobbit is 1937 when it was published. The second edition came out in 1951 when he was already working on Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
And in the second edition of The Hobbit, he's completely rewritten the Riddles in the Dark chapter to make Gollum more sinister, to then reflect the direction he was taking him in the Lord of the Rings books.
I probably read the later version of The Hobbit.
You read the Tolkien has already edited it and retconned it to fit into where he's going with Lord of the Rings.
That makes sense.
Yours truly.
Oh, then I need to read another version.
Read another version. And like there are reprints now, so you can find it.
Yeah.
And there's other edits. There's like typos and mistakes in the text because it was a first edition and it needed some tweaking.
Yeah.
Because like old-timey publication, right? They didn't have digital versions.
Right.
But yes, if you can find yourself a copy of the original version of The Hobbit, he's not so spooky. He's just kind of like a little creature hanging out there and has his riddles and like
maybe more like Gollum, my favorite.
Yeah, more like Gollum. Not right? Like there's a difference there.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So like clearly once Tolkien realized where he wanted to maybe take the story, he's like, I gotta fix this chapter in The Hobbit because that now is a lot more important as a foundation for this character.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah.
I learned something. Yeah.
Cool, right? Today on Random Lectures with Kelsey. No. Yeah. So like there's differences in the rewrite there with the second edition. And then Tolkien himself talked basically in the rewrites about I guess I need to make him darker, but how dark should I take it? And this is where we get into Tolkien's letters where he talks about almost struggling over how pitiable to make it the character, how inherently evil to make the character. And like, do I make him like a true villain or do I make him someone kind of in between? And I think for me personally, I'm really happy with the very, very nuanced, vulnerable version of Gollum, Smeagol that we end up getting in the books. And I think that shines through in Peter Woodthorpe's 1981 representation in Andy's Circus because of the way Tolkien was finally able to land on this very complicated, like, you're sad for him, you feel bad for him.
I mean, I don't know if I can
scared
think
of him.
Of a more complex character. I mean, everybody in The Lord of the Rings, as a character, is pretty nuanced.
Yeah.
Which I think does speak to just Tolkien as a writer. Yeah, Gollum, though, has so many different layers to him and is so complex. I mean, I guess I knew that he struggled with a lot of the characters in terms of how to finally land on them, but I don't know if even at the end he was fully settled with Gollum. I've started to read a little bit about the letters, especially when it comes to Gollum, whether he's savable, which we'll get to, but I don't know if I've actually read the letters that you're mentioning about his discussion of the character.
So there's a really, really good scene. Well, it's one of my favorite sad scenes in the books and the movies, where it's after Frodo and Sam have been captured by Faramir and are taken to like the secret hidden pool hideout.
Mm-hmm.
And Gollum's not with them. And Faramir's like, anybody else with you? And Frodo's like, nope.
There's nobody.
Are you sure there's nothing you want to tell me, Frodo? No, not at all.
Yeah.
And of course, Faramir's crew knows that Gollum exists, and Gollum is in the forbidden pool fishing.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a great job of this in the movies because you can kind of see the like innocence in his face almost.
Yeah.
And then of course Frodo betrays Gollum to get him to come and be captured by Faramir's crew.
Tough spot to be in.
It's a tough spot to be in. Like, you obviously don't want... Frodo didn't want Gollum to be killed by Faramir and his rangers, but he also didn't want to lie to Gollum because he'd built up all this trust with him finally over weeks, if not months of traveling.
If Frodo was truthful with Gollum, he never would have come with and probably would have been killed.
Yeah.
He kind of had to lie.
But it's implied, at least in the way they directed in the movie, Peter Jackson's films, it is implied that Frodo lying to Gollum is what ultimately turns him to Smeagol. Like, because he's Smeagol at that point in time. Frodo lying to him,
it was betrayal.
Breaks him and betrays him in such a way that Gollum goes back to being like really evil Gollum and plots for Shelob and kind of the rest of it. So it's this really sad moment. But Tolkien seized on that in one of his letters, his letter 246, which he wrote in the 60s. And Tolkien said he considered that scene at the Forbidden Pool to be the most tragic scene.
Wait, it's actually a different scene.
Oh.
Yeah, because this is the letter that I've read.
Oh.
It's actually, so Frodo and Sam and Gollum are going up the stairs.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're even, it's before Cirith Ungol.
Yeah.
But they are really tired and they take a nap. And so Frodo is laying in Sam's lap, like his head in Sam's lap. And Sam is supposed to stay awake, but he falls asleep.
Yes.
It's written that it's a very peaceful sleep. Like they've got peace on their faces. And Gollum comes back from his, whatever he's doing.
Yeah.
Sneaking.
And
he sees them and he's looking at them. I've actually got the passage.
Yeah. This is the scene where Tolkien said he cried while writing it, right?
Yes. Yeah. Are we talking?
We're talking about two different passages, but I think they're both very... Like, I think that was the one that moved Tolkien the most while writing it. And the one I'm talking about is one that he just said, in terms of the plot, like, this is the most tragic point in the story because of what happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, just to finish out mine real quick. When Gollum sees Frodo and Sam, it says, the gleam faded from his eyes, and they went dim and gray, old and tired. Let's see. He came back, and slowly putting out a trembling hand, very cautiously he touched Frodo's knee, but almost the touch was a caress. For a fleeting moment, could one of the sleepers have seen him, they would have thought that they beheld an old, weary hobbit, shrunken by the years that had carried him far beyond his time, beyond friends and kin, and the fields and streams of youth, an old, starved, pitiable thing. So for this moment, it's like Gollum is almost more Hobbit-like, and like Smeagol may have won out.
Yeah.
But I think we're getting now into whether he was savable or not. I was trying to save this one for later, but...
No, I think it's good to talk about. This is the ultimate Gollum question, I think, that most people struggle with, and even actors in their various portrayals kind of comes across in their performance, is like, is this ultimately a creature that is redeemable, or was he always going to be evil? Right? Like, it's...
But yeah, that writing that passage, I guess, was difficult for Tolkien because it's like just a sad moment of when is Smeagol...
Is it
Gollum
friendly Smeagol like taking over? And
it definitely gives that impression of the gleam faded and he was just an old, tired hobbit.
Yeah, and it's so sad when it's written like that.
That made me feel the most pity for Gollum as far as like recognizing that he is just a hobbit. He's 500 years plus old, has none of his old friends and family left.
He's a really pitiable character. And I believe Tolkien himself said ultimately Gollum could have been redeemable. maybe it's his Catholic nature. Maybe it's just, the way he decided to ultimately write the character. But Tolkien genuinely believed Gollum could have been redeemed. And I think that passage you landed on highlights that. There is something still in him that is just like old and sad and not fully corrupted, even though it's clinging on, like his loincloth is clinging on to life, right? Like it's just, but it's fleeting and it gets chased away so quickly, often by Sam.
I know.
In the books. And that's what makes me sad. Like, is Sam's loyalty and love for Frodo preventing Gollum from being redeemed from redemption?
I have so many thoughts that I could get into now if we're going to go down it now. Okay.
Go for it.
So I think I think everybody has the capacity for redemption, including Gollum. But where I might disagree with Tolkien is that Gollum does have this moment where if Sam didn't react to him with suspicion when he woke up, would Gollum have kept being just a little tired old hobbit for the rest of the journey? And the reason I disagree
Angela
maybe
says
with Tolkien,
no.
I say no, because, hot take maybe, I feel like if Gollum's transition into good depends so thoroughly on Sam's reaction or others' reaction to him, then it's not a true change.
That's fair. I mean, I get that, right? Like, he's got to want to save himself. And if he can't, irregardless of what's going on around him, like, there needs to be something in there that is...
Like, if there was a true recognition that how he was being was not good and that he should be different, then he would have that recognition and even understand Sam's reaction to him. But because he cannot see his own... He's not self-aware enough to know.
Like, the ring's almost like corrupted him so much that he can't.
I think he's too far
gone. Well,
and I have an even hotter take than that.
Well, give me the hotter take. I want to hear it. Like, fires of Mount Doom hot? Like,
maybe, I don't know. You tell me. But I don't even think the ring is what made him so corrupted.
Oh.
I think that he was always before the ring.
So the ring's not to blame.
It's partly to blame. But I think he was never the type of hobbit to be able to kind of turn around who he was.
Resist the ring?
Well, yeah, to resist the ring, but even before he found the ring, he was always kind of that sneaky, just not a great hobbit to start with.
Saying he was a bad egg to start with.
He was a bad egg.
And the ring amplified the bad egginess, if you will.
Exactly. Like, the ring definitely made him even more of a bad hobbit, but I don't think he really saw him. He wasn't very self-aware to start with, and I don't think he really had the capacity to fully change.
Interesting.
There may have been some regret in that moment with Frodo and Sam. I feel like it's regret of, like, he's never going to have that level of friendship.
Here's a hot take that you've gotten me thinking about now that we're discussing Smeagol and whether or not he was ultimately just bad from the start. So in the way that they narrate the intro in Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Ring, and I can't remember if this is in the book or just the way they edited the scene, but Galadriel's doing her summary of all the events leading up to where we are now. And then she's like, and the ring and Gollum, and she says, and then something happened that the ring did not expect. And it's Bilbo picking it up.
Right.
So the ring's trying to get away from Gollum, but it didn't expect a hobbit to, like, walk in and pick it up, right?
It probably preferred an orc.
Probably wanted an orc or something easily corruptible. Okay, so bear with me. Do you think that the ring wanted either... Two ways we can take this. I'm leaning towards it wanted to be found... Well, actually, no. I don't know which is more likely, but I'll talk through both scenarios.
Yeah.
One version is it wanted to be picked up. It was finally like, I hear my master calling. I want to get out of this river.
Wanted to be picked up by somebody.
Wanted to be picked up by somebody. And it was like, great, there's a hobbit here, Deagle. I want you because you're of a nature where you might not be as bad, but, like, I feel like you're still malleable enough I can mess with you. And it didn't expect to be taken by Gollum, right?
Maybe.
Or did it want to be taken and it wanted to be taken by Gollum, and Deagle was, like, the wrench in the plan, where it didn't expect Deagle to pick it up. And it really wanted the eviler of the two, if you will.
Okay.
And it's like, so what's this other hobbit here?
So we're talking about the ring and that it has some level of power over those around it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because even in the movies, they talk about how the ring wanted to be found. It's trying. So,
right.
Like, because there's, like, a little bitty bit of Sauron in there.
Yeah.
It tries to do what it can in its limited ring capacity.
Is it almost like, well, okay, so Deagle found the ring first.
Yes.
And then Smeagol was right there.
Yeah.
Because they're fishing together.
Yeah.
And maybe in the presence of the ring, depending on who's in the presence, it's like whoever's the most corruptible will end up with it type of thing. Like,
not true between Bilbo and Gollum then, right?
No, but maybe, I mean, the ring spent 500 years with Gollum, and it's like, this guy is never leaving.
Like, it's bored out of my mind. Well, so that's why I was kind of getting at. Like, did it sense the nature of Gollum where it wanted to be picked up by Deagle? Because at least there's a chance that it could, like, move along somewhere and get out of the river. And it didn't want Smeagol because of his nature where it was like, oh, no, I'm just going to disappear, right? Or it wanted Smeagol because Smeagol was the more evil of the two.
I don't know. I don't know how much pull the ring really has.
Or it wanted neither of them because, gosh darn it, it wanted an orc.
Yeah, right.
It just wanted to get out of that river.
Yeah. I mean, I think it did want to get out of the river. And it's like attracting whoever.
It's like sending out its like little ring feelers, like sending out pulses of evil energy to see.
Because we could go like, how did they pick that spot to fish? Was it complete chance?
Or was it the ring calling to them to fall where it had settled, right? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Like,
do you know how far away that fishing spot was from their home? Like,
no, I don't think it's described. And we don't know how far down the river it is from where Isildur was actually killed. We know it's in the vicinity, right, of the Gladden Fields, but we don't know, like, did it, like, fall off his hand right away and just settle? Did it get travel down the river some? Did it get picked up by a fish?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, speaking of Deagle and Smeagol, when they first find that ring, and why I think Smeagol is not a good egg hobbit is because he just goes straight to murder.
He just like, do not pass go, just like straight to murder.
Yeah. Like, he's probably one of the more evil when it comes to influence of the ring.
Yeah, it's like an immediate change versus
everybody else is able to resist it at least somewhat or not go straight to evil.
Bilbo doesn't kill Gollum in the caves in the Misty Mountains. He has a chance. He's got stinging.
He has a great chance.
Resists. Frodo resists. Look, Sam doesn't even like him, and Sam resists. Like, maybe because of Frodo, but still, Sam doesn't kill him, even though he really does not like him.
You mean Gollum? Or yeah, but I'm like, if Sam were as evil as Gollum, then he would have killed Frodo.
Exactly. Or Bilbo would have killed Gollum to be like, the ring is mine, right? Like, I'm saying, well, I agree with, I agree. All these people have chances to like kill somebody in the presence of the ring, and Gollum's the only one that does it right away.
Right away.
Like, immediately.
Like, hey, I kind of want that because it's my birthday. It's like, no, actually, I want it.
Gives it to me, my love. Because why? Well, so I think this hits it kind of Tolkien struggling with like Gollum's moral status, right? Is Smeagol really still in there? Could he actually be redeemed, or is he like straight villain? I think it's a nuance, right? Because if you make him too pathetic, he's not threatening in the text where he needs to be. And I think that comes across in the early versions of Gollum we were talking about, like the early versions where he's
just like, pathetic.
He's just pathetic. And you're like, well, that's not okay, knowing where the story goes. And then if he's too evil and monstrous, you don't have that pang in your heart. Like in the passage where he sees Frodo and Sam, or where he's lied to by Frodo, you don't feel sorry for him if he's just evil.
Complete evil.
Through and through. So you sort of have to thread this very, very, very skinny needle. And then it was Tolkien in one of his letters basically wanted to have Smeagol come across as having pre-existing character weaknesses. And I think that's exactly what you've hit on.
Yeah.
Where Tolkien talks about him being kind of not a good character and kind of a bit of a villain from the very beginning, right? And that's it, right? Like, he's not pure of heart. He's not willing to be there like Frodo or Bilbo. Like, he's a little corrupted already, and the ring's like, amazing. We're going to like, amp that up to 100.
BFFs.
Yeah.
So amp it up to 100, yeah.
Tolkien in some of his other letters, he talked about that. Like, he wanted to say that, like, Smeagol, I think Tolkien would agree with you in some of the analysis, is that Smeagol had already had tendencies towards greed and meanness and possessiveness that the ring exploited and amplified.
That doesn't mean that he was necessarily an evil character. And I do still think that the Smeagol, wasn't necessarily evil, but he did have those tendencies of greed. And
he had more in the bad column starting out than Frodo or Bilbo did, for sure. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're kind of getting at this, where he had some of that. He had more of the darkness that was there from the beginning versus stuff that the ring.
Maybe he had just not a great little Hobbit childhood to start with.
We're going to go through childhood therapy.
I was going to say, if he had more love from the start, would he have been who he is?
If he'd had a Bilbo to take him in, and I mean, maybe, right? Like, we don't know. I know in the like little brief bits we get, he's described as like sneaking and thieving and kind of an outcast for this little Hobbit clan that he's a part of. And I think you and I were talking earlier where I was like, look, is it that he's sneaky and an outcast because he's sneaky and an outcast and people just don't like him and therefore treat him because of his actions? Or is he treated like an outcast and that's caused him to be
be sneaky
and thieving and kind of on the outskirts of their society. So who knows, right? But I think his grandmother or mother is listed as like the head of the clan.
Yes.
Which makes me think he wasn't really that much of a pariah. At least he had the familial connections where like...
Okay, because I was like, I know the term, but I actually don't know the
so
definition.
like it's described that his grandmother is like the head of this little proto-Hobbit clan. And again, I don't know how big of an extended family or whatever, but if your grandmother is the matron, are you really an outcast or are you acting in ways that make people get annoyed with you?
I'm leaning towards that one, that he was just always sneaky and lying and...
Sneaky. Yeah.
Because after he gets the ring, and he kills for it, and so he obviously has to lie.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's like, where's Deagle? I'm assuming there's probably some suspicion of like, hey, weren't you guys fishing together earlier?
Yeah.
So he probably had to lie a bunch to get out of that. And then apparently he used the ring to steal and spy on his friends and family.
Yeah, which made it worse. And they were like, dude. Like,
they cast him out.
Yeah, they kicked him out. So it's its own fault. And maybe a little bit the ring, but mostly him.
Because he didn't, even with the ring, like we said before, Bilbo didn't do anything like that. And he's lived 60 years in the Shire as like a relatively respected.
Quirky, but
Hobbit.
respected.
You know, he was a little quirky. But so Smeagol didn't have to act like that.
I think that's a fair... And again, we get through a couple of Tolkien's letters where he's like, he was kind of not a great character and kind of greedy and kind of like, he's kind of sets that foundation where he's got more flaws than your average
I still think it is a good question though. So let's say if Gollum didn't feel betrayed by Frodo in that Faramir scene.
Yeah.
And then if Sam recognized Gollum not being evil in that moment and was nice to him and kind, would Gollum have been more loyal to both of them through the rest of the journey? I mean, Tolkien did talk about this as well, I think, in some of his letters.
Yeah, so he speculated, I think it's in that same letter 246, or maybe another one, he speculated on what might have happened if Gollum had been allowed to complete his redemptive turn. Like, Frodo doesn't betray him, or whatever the pivotal point is, doesn't happen where he feels betrayed again. And Tolkien suggested that Gollum's growing love for Frodo would have conflicted with his desire for the ring at some point. So those are the two forces that come to a head. Instead of Deagle and Smeagol duking it out, or maybe it's just a version of that again, it's like the part of Smeagol or Gollum that's like, I really do care for Frodo and want to do everything possible for him, versus the part of him that's, I still really want the ring and I'm never going to be able to turn that voice off. So Tolkien theorized that Gollum might have voluntarily cast himself into the fire as an ultimate act of service to Frodo, recognizing that he couldn't wield the ring and kind of like getting his ring and saving Frodo. So like ultimately same end, but different way of getting there.
Yeah, I think I read the same thing, and I don't remember if it was this explicit or if I just visualized this, where Gollum still takes the ring from Frodo in the end.
Yeah.
But by taking it, kind of recognizes in this bigger picture type of way that like, I am not stronger than Sauron. He kind of sees that like, there is no way out of this besides the ring needing to be destroyed.
Yeah.
I have it. And to save Frodo, the ring and I have to go, and like basically jumps in.
It's like
with
this horrible act of service, but he's saving Frodo from the burden of what happened to him, which is however many 100 years of service to the ring.
And then he kind of is able to keep all of his promises in a way. Like, he gets the ring. Sauron doesn't get it. And he doesn't break his promise to Frodo.
Yeah. I mean,
I like it, but at the same time, it's almost too neat.
It's too neat. Ending. I'm glad he went with the one he did. Apparently Tolkien struggled with the mechanics of exactly how Gollum destroys the ring.
Did he really trip?
Did he jump? Did he get pushed in by Frodo angrily? Like he was kind of we see sort of a version of this.
Did the god put a rock in front of him that led him to trip?
I like the idea. That like it's that divine intervention that causes him to trip, where Gollum's got the ring and he's so excited. And I guess in the original published text of The Return of the King, this suggests that Gollum only accidentally stepped into the fire. Like, his goal was to get out of there with the ring. And not to destroy it. And it's him, basically, he stepped too far, toppled, wavered for a moment on the brink, and then with a shriek he fell. So like, he wasn't planning on destroying the ring, but it ended up working out.
It happened, but
was it kind of like Eru Iluvatar sends his regards and causes him to trip? Like, finally, we'll just get this thing over. Let's get it into the goal. Like, we got this. Let's finish it off.
You know, I don't know what I personally want it to be. Yeah, is it divine intervention or not? But all the ingredients, like Frodo got the ring to the cracks of doom. I don't know where I'm going with this, but just all the ingredients were there for the ring to get into the fire. And
yeah,
I mean,
Frodo fails.
Just a trip.
Can we really hold Gollum responsible for being corrupted for 500 years with the ring? Like, what would Frodo look like in 500 years? And would we hold him to the same standard?
Man. No, that's a good question, because Gollum had it for 500 years. Frodo had it for a year?
A year?
Oh, wait, no, I'm forgetting that he had it in his possession technically for 18 years.
Okay,
total.
Fine.
But still.
A blink of an eye compared to how long Gollum had it. And Bilbo had it for 60, and he struggles. He's basically described exactly like that scene in the movie in the first of Peter Jackson's films where Frodo starts unbuttoning his shirt because Bilbo wants to give him the mithril, and the ring is exposed, and Bilbo kind of does like and like turns into Gollum, and that's basically how it's described in the book. So 60 years, he's already starting to turn into that. So, after 500 years, like,
that's a good point.
Can't blame the guy too much. Like, I don't think any of them would have been in great shape after that.
No, that's a good point.
So I guess where I was going with that, it's really bad, but is it really his fault at this point in time he's acting the way he is? Because the ring's just taken over so much of his brain that he almost can't help himself.
Yeah. I guess no matter who he was in the beginning, because he didn't start out great.
He didn't start out great, but he didn't start out completely irredeemable. I think that's an important point.
How old was little Smeagol when he found the ring?
No.
I wonder. Like, was he just a teenager that hadn't grown up a little?
Right? Like with the impulses and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, teenager in our sense or teenager in a Hobbit sense, because they don't come of age until their 30s, so.
True, but they're still pretty immature, I'm assuming. Like, in their little teenage years.
Yeah, it's really
33 years old.
It's really interesting. I mean, you see why Tolkien, I see why Tolkien struggled with it, because we can't answer these questions. He never fully answered these questions, and I think ultimately that's what makes Gollum such a really, really good, fascinating character, right? Like, he's essential.
I like how it's not clean, because it is very human in a way, in terms of just human nature being so imperfect.
Yeah, and I think compassion is one of the themes I would say that comes through Tolkien's works and his writings. Like, compassion is what makes so many of the characters wonderful and have depth, and kind of highlights, even when they're struggling, like, there's still compassion for their characters. There's compassion for Boromir before he dies. There's compassion for Frodo, even though he fails his quest. There's compassion, right? And I think that's why Gollum is tragic, like, precisely because, for where I stand, like, I do think he was redeemable. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think Gollum is redeemable. I think Tolkien thought Gollum was redeemable. But what makes it so tragic is because redemption was possible, but ultimately between the circumstances and all these little moments, like at the reflecting pool, the forbidden pool, Sam reacting to Gollum, all these little chips and chips and chips. So the environment and everything happening kind of thwarted Gollum from ultimately being redeemed. It was there. It just never materialized. And it's so sad. And none of this would have been possible for Gollum. Like, Gollum got them to Mordor.
Yeah.
Gollum ultimately destroyed the ring. So we have him to thank. But
I guess I don't know what Smeagol was like, or Gollum was like, to other characters as much. But Frodo was one of the only people to trust him and be that kind to him.
Yeah.
So I feel like Frodo in particular did give Gollum more of a chance at showing Gollum what kindness was again.
Yeah.
Maybe jog his memory a little bit.
Maybe. And I think maybe that's Frodo's nature, but I think there's an argument to be made that Frodo is able to show that level of compassion. I'm going to go back to that word again. Because he understands the burden, and he sees in Gollum a reflection of what he could be.
Yeah. Oh,
so
yes.
There's a depth of understanding there. Like, Sam doesn't like the guy because the guy is a trickster and a liar and a murderer and all the things he's done and all the horrible things. And Sam's not wrong.
Right.
But Sam's not currently carrying the ring and going through all the mental, physical stuff. He just doesn't know
That's
to that
part
level.
Of the tragedy is that Sam is not able to see this connection between Frodo and Gollum. Even though on some level, he'll never understand to the level Frodo does because he's not the ring bearer. But even just from an empathy point of view of there's kind of a lack of, maybe the word is empathy, of being able to put himself in Frodo's shoes of how he sees Gollum and the relationship there that's developing of common ring bearer status.
Yeah, at that moment. I think after Sam
but even the whole journey, Like
he gets a bit of it, but even
true, but that's after.
Yeah, it's after all this goes down. It's only then after all this goes down, after he thinks Frodo's dead, after Gollum's disappeared, that Sam puts on the ring and he's like, oh,
this is what Frodo's been carrying.
This is awful.
Yeah. How has he gotten this far? Type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now he sees it then.
A little too late. That's tragic too, right? It's really sad.
Absolutely.
If you'd only seen it before, but again, if he'd seen it before and he and Frodo had helped save Smeagol, well, would they have gone through the passage of Cirith Ungol? Would they have made it the way they did?
Even if they made it through the passage, probably Gollum could have taken them through without leading them into Shelob.
Yeah. But ultimately, would he still have attacked them or tried to take the ring? Maybe. I think yes.
I think even Tolkien thought that even if Smeagol turned around at the end, the power of the ring would have still made him take it for his own again. This is where I think it did come from, that letter. Even if he took it for himself, as soon as he took it, it would he would see the futility.
Yeah.
And also, it's like,
have a horrible realization all at once.
Yeah.
Maybe finally have that resolved. Maybe. I mean, Gollum represents everything unresolved in Tolkien's moral universe, and I love that. He's such a good character. He's such a complex character. He's everything all at once, and I don't know. I like that it ends on a question mark. Even with all this, even with everything we've read about it and all the different portrayals and everything Tolkien's written on it, people are still debating it.
Right.
We're debating it right now.
Right. Well, like you said, even in those letters, he was clearly still debating with himself.
Yeah.
I
don't know if he ever landed on a final interpretation, but that shows the moral complexity and depth of what he was trying to represent with Gollum, which is fantastic.
I think he overall landed on the right ending, because I think it was him that said that if he had written Gollum to have a change on the stairs of Cirith Ungol, that then the rest of the story would have been more highlighted on Gollum's story than on Frodo's journey to Mount Doom, maybe. Maybe you could have written it in a way that was still less about Gollum, but Gollum having a change of heart then, it definitely would have changed the whole tone of the rest of the journey.
Well, he's a very important character, but you're right. He's probably the most important character in the books, but he's not the focus 90% of the time, right? It's everybody else and Frodo's journey and the Fellowship and everybody else we're dealing with. And Gollum's kind of always there. He's always a presence. He's always important. But yeah, you're right. That would definitely change the vibe as you're sort of going to the end, where it's like Gollum the hero and Gollum this and Gollum's just going to lead you the way. And it's like, well, okay.
It'd be much more Gollum focused.
I need Sam to take the spotlight carrying Frodo anyway. We can't have that without.
But that does highlight the sadness that I think Tolkien felt when writing, knowing that Gollum can't change for the story's sake.
Oh, that hits hard. That hits so
Gollum.
hard. Gollum, thank you for your service to the plot, because, man, do you have any parting thought? That's such a good note to end on. Do you have, that's right. Why does Tolkien's most essential character have the least clear moral arc? Why is it so tragic? Why is it pull at our heartstrings, even though he's just a little depressed turtle, if you will?
He's a depressed turtle at the end of the day. Yeah. Poor guy.
Oh, awesome. Well,
we love Gollum.
I would say this does raise a lot of questions, and I'd love to hear our listeners' thoughts on where you land on Gollum. Is he ultimately redeemable? Is it divine intervention that is why he was able to destroy the ring and trip? Can failure be a success for him or for Frodo? He failed.
In the end, it was.
For both of them. Frodo fails the quest, it works out. Gollum fails in his desire and grabs the ring, and it works out.
Maybe perfection isn't needed for things to work out in the end.
Do compassion and mercy always save the day, even if the character isn't redeemable?
Good questions.
Well, I think that brings us to our call to adventure. So if you enjoyed wandering with us today, please subscribe to Beyond the Brandywine on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You can also find us on YouTube at Beyond the Brandywine. We'll be putting up visual tangents to accompany some of the podcasts, as well as recordings of the podcasts themselves.
And for even more Middle-earth musings, you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Beyond the Brandywine.
Plus, find all of our links and more at beyondthebrandywine.com.
As I said earlier, we would love to hear your thoughts on whether or not you think Gollum is redeemable. Would you try to save his pitiable self, or would you strike with the force of Sting, or something in between? So send us your thoughts, reach out to us on socials, or email us at hello@beyondthebrandywine.com.
What was that again?
hello@beyondthebrandywine.com.
So until next time, Don't pick up any suspicious jewelry laying on the ground unless you really like raw fish and living in caves.
And remember, don't be afraid to wander beyond the Brandywine.